Hello and welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Edge, the podcast of InfoEdge's Center for Entrepreneurship at Plaksha University. I am Prashita Agarwal, a second-year student majoring in CSAI. Today we are honored to host Professor Mukesh Sud, visiting faculty at Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad and Ashoka University. He is a visiting fellow at Cambridge Judge Business School. He is the co-author of Leapfrog, a book which explores practices that help individuals thrive in uncertain environments. He is an entrepreneur turned academic. He has both built ventures and studied them deeply. Professor Sood, it's a privilege to have you with us today.
Thanks a lot.
Let's begin by exploring your journey here.
Sure.
You built and exited multiple businesses before entering academia. Most entrepreneurs don't choose to step away. What made you move from building companies to studying and teaching them?
So, Prashita, I come from a different generation.
Right.
This is the early 80s, mid 90s, when entrepreneurship was not such a big thing.
Right.
And I was involved in engineering. So, I had engineering companies, small scale industries that I gradually built up over a period. But very soon in my entrepreneurial journey, I think maybe 10 years into it, I figured that I wanted to do something else and something more intellectual. So I gradually then started teaching a little bit. I then took the CAT exam multiple times, in fact, just to be able to clear it. And I then got admission into IIM Bangalore for, in those days, it was called an FPM.
Right.
And I then had the option to hand over the business to my wife and say, look, we need to exit from the business. And we did that comfortably, but not like the numbers you hear about today, the super duper numbers. And I then completed a PhD.
That's excellent, honestly. I see many entrepreneurs don't have that kind of mindset. Once they get into business, they have that bug that they also always want to continue entrepreneurship. This is a fresh outlook towards this. When you later taught at IIM Ahmedabad, did you ever find yourself disagreeing with traditional management theory because of what you experienced on the ground?
So let me take you back a little bit, because between the PhD at, or the FPM at Bangalore and then joining IIM Ahmedabad, there was a full 9-year gap.
Oh.
Where I was in the US teaching there. So that was my first exposure to teaching. There the teaching was primarily undergrad. And I was in a liberal arts environment where you had students from sociology and music and religion and computer science all in the same class. And in a liberal arts environment, entrepreneurship flourishes because all these kids have to make a living. So my initial grounding there was very different from what you see in India today. When I came to IIM Ahmedabad, it was a different story completely, because here you have graduate students, they're all
Right.
aspiring to be managers, they're doing an MBA, and their primary focus is not entrepreneurship. Their primary focus is a job. However, they also realize that large companies today want you to be very entrepreneurial in whatever you do. You can label it entrepreneurship or corporate entrepreneurship. So they then want to pick up some skills before they finish their MBA that will help them in entrepreneurship. Also, because of the liberal arts background, I was focusing on entrepreneurship as a mindset. So it's not only about entrepreneurship to start and build a business, but being entrepreneurial in everything you do. It may or may not result in a for-profit business. It could be a social venture. It's called social entrepreneurship. Or it could just be entrepreneurial in everything that you do.
I see. Would you say then, even in every aspect of your professional career, entrepreneurship helps you to progress further? The skills that you learn through entrepreneurship, they help you in every aspect of every career, any career that you pursue.
Most certainly, it starts off with an entrepreneur treating failure as part of everyday life, being able to fail at something, learn from it and carry on. Entrepreneurship teaches you, for example, what we call OPR, other people's resources. How can you leverage them? Entrepreneurship teaches you that if you get a no, big deal, you just carry on. So entrepreneurship gives you certain skills that I think help you in anything that you want to do. whether it is a change of career, whether it is starting something on the side while you're on a job. I think entrepreneurship is mandatory. Unfortunately, in India today, we don't have entrepreneurship as a required course. It's an elective. So people choose it because they think that they would like to learn about it.
That's a fresh take on this. Uh, in Leapfrog, the book that you co-wrote, you talk about developing grit and even embracing boredom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In a world of constant simulation that we live in, how can students train themselves to stay committed to long, unglamorous hours, particularly in entrepreneurship, where the grind before the big break is
Yeah.
quite unglamorous? What are your views on that?
You know, grit is the first chapter in the book where we talk about having passion and perseverance. Many people are passionate. The question is, do they have the perseverance to carry the passion to the next level? And that's where the boredom aspect comes in. When you get bored, basically your brain is telling you that you're not being challenged enough. Now, rather than relieve that boredom by getting into social media or watching a quick, YouTube video, you need to go back and ask yourself, am I being challenged? If not, what else can I do to keep me occupied and keep me challenged and keep me focused? And that is where grit comes in. Now, we looked at, the spelling bee champs. They're young kids in the US and 99% of Indian origin. And they do very well in the spelling bee contest. I think, are you familiar with it?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And these kids have to memorize words with Latin and Greek and sometimes Sanskrit verbs in it. And it's a very difficult job. How do they relieve boredom? We studied it. One kid in a group practicing difficult words had a grandmother at home. They would go to the granny and ask the granny to pronounce the name of a word, which the granny did with a typical Indian accent.
Right.
That made them hilarious with laughter. And their boredom got relieved. Then they would go back.
I see.
We give a number of such examples in the book where we all get bored. And if we believe that sports people, for example, don't get bored, they're doing hours and hours and hours of the same thing. And their moment of glory is maybe only 10%. But 90% of the time is just spent in doing repetitive tasks.
That's
but
true.
doing it in an improved way every time. So we give the example of, you do something every day of your life and you do it the same way. At the end of a full year, you are as good or as bad as you started off. Because 1.00 to the path 365 is 1.00. But you improve yourself by 1% every day. And that 1.01 to the path 365 is, guess what? You're aware of it.
37%.
37.7.
Right.
Not percent, 37.7 times
That's a large number compared
as you
to.
were when you started.
Right.
And once you have these goals in mind and you know that I have the passion, I have to persevere, you can get there.
That was really nice take on it. Would you like to also share something on your recent book, Lean Spark?
Yeah, so Lean Spark emerged because me and two of my co-authors were teaching a course at Ashoka. And I was in part responsible for putting this team together. And Priyank Narayan and Jaideep Prabhu. Jaideep is at Cambridge, Priyank is at Ashoka. And Priyank and I used to teach a lot there. And I met Jaideep on a flight after many, many years. And then we discovered that we both knew Priyank and that he had been a guest faculty with Priyank. And I said, Jaideep, like to teach a course. And Jaideep comes from a frugal background. Frugal as in he's not frugal himself, but he studies frugal innovation. And he's looked at it in developed economies and now in emerging markets like India.
I see.
And we said, let's offer a course, because in academia, the thumb rule is you want to learn about something, offer a course in it. And you'll be forced to study it, then student inputs come in. And my condition was that we can't just do this as a course. It has to lead to something. So I said, okay, let's let this lead to a book. It's now 3 years since we started teaching, about 2.5 years, and we have a book called Lean Spark. And the basic premise of the book is that jugaad, which in some ways is looked down upon, in India at least, is a way of starting from scratch with limited resources, but then becoming mainstream. And the interesting part of it is that Western companies look at Jugaad in a positive way because they feel that with limited resources, how can you innovate? In India, we think it's a make do kind of thing that you pass on today, you manage today, and you'll somehow manage tomorrow. And our argument is that we have interviewed a number of entrepreneurs who started in a so-called Jugaadu way and then became mainstream, where they brought in systems, they brought in processes, they brought in quality control, and they're running good businesses. And we have documented these stories in Lean Spark. It has just been released at the Jaipur Lit Fest in Jan. And in fact, we are doing a book tour starting with in March. And Plaksha is one of the places where we plan to come.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be a great opportunity for our students here. You mentioned a lot about teaching in every answer that you give right now, I observed. A lot about academia and all of that. I just wanted to know, when you were in academia and when you were teaching, did you ever find, when you were mentoring high potential students, what separated those who talked about entrepreneurship from those who actually built something meaningful?
Okay. So firstly, I'm still teaching, but I now teach what I enjoy teaching. So, for example, I enjoy teaching design thinking.
Earlier you did not do that?
Earlier, you in academia, you have to follow a certain path till you get tenure, till you achieve a certain status and have cleared some barriers.
Understood.
After that, you can do what you like.
Understood.
So I still teach, but I do more of teaching in management development programs. I enjoy teaching practicing managers because they come with real life problems, and then you can give them advice. But to go back to your earlier question, I've only offered electives. I've never ever taught a required course. So I've been fortunate that students who aspire to be entrepreneurs sign up for my course. Again, I've been fortunate that the numbers who want to do the course are far more than the seats available. So I make them write a one-pager as to why they need to be in the class. Secondly, I only offer classes early in the morning, 8:45. I did that in the US, in the Midwest where it is cold, and I offer it here too. So a student who says, I'm willing to commit to come to a class at 8:45, and my doors get locked at 8:45:01. So I've been fortunate to get students who are really interested in doing something, and my job is not to get them to start a business. My job is to plant the seed of entrepreneurship within them. It may flourish after 5 years, after 10 years, that's perfectly okay. But it makes them think like an entrepreneur, both in terms of the job that they are doing and people they are advising. So they pass the seed on. So we shouldn't evaluate everybody in terms of, have you started a business? How successful has that been? But have you been able to promote the idea of entrepreneurship in a wider base? That, I think, is the true measure of success. Not how many businesses have you started, did they IPO, did they make a lot of money for you? Because money can never be an objective. Money is only a byproduct, it will come, but it can't be your primary objective.
So you would say it's more qualitative metrics than quantitative while measuring?
Yeah, if you see, for example, we say that 70–80% of entrepreneurs fail. Then why would you start a business if you are told that 70% is a failure rate? I spin that around and ask students that what you are measuring and talking about is the wrong metric. When you say 70% is the failure rate, it is not of the entrepreneur. What is it of? The business. Ask a reverse question. How many entrepreneurs fail? My number would be 30%, because they pivot from what they are doing to something else, or they go back into corporate India or a corporate job, and then they try something else after a few years. So you need to look at this from a longer term perspective and not be biased by something you see immediately.
Many people, even of those 30% that you mentioned, many people fail to have those resources even after facing multiple failures, even if they want to continue or pursue their dreams further. Sometimes they lack resources, be it monetary, be it further commitments, bringing bringing food to your family's plate. Even if you're not able to do that, then how do you balance that out with your passion, with the requirements to survive?
Firstly, I'm going to argue that resources is not a constraint. I use the term OPR, other people's
Resources.
resources. And entrepreneurs have the ability through their networks to leverage resources. The easiest resource to get is money. Believe me, there is more money chasing good opportunities and good people than one can believe. But this is a bugbear that we have, that there are no resources. I think getting a good opportunity, finding a gap, finding a potential business to start is a bigger resource constraint than money. But once you've identified something, and today youngsters follow the lean startup model, where they don't really launch a business. They have an idea. They create an MVP, which is a minimum viable product, which has some basic features that they think will work in the market. That MVP is then taken to potential users, and you ask the users, is this working? The user could give you one of three answers. The user could say this is complete rubbish, in which case you dump the idea. The user could say that this is fantastic, it really serves my purpose, you will then take it forward. But 75 to 80% of the time, the user does not give any of these two answers. The user would tell you, you know what, this is interesting, this is solving a small part of my problem, but the bigger problem is here. If you solve this, you have a winner on your hands. And that's where the pivoting happens. And the whole lean approach, which is where Lean Spark also comes from, is a lean startup. When I make an MVP, I test it out, I gather feedback, and I then pursue the opportunity that is I am pointed towards and keep adding features. So I cut down on my development time, and I don't fall in love with my product and then try and push it down my customer's throat.
I see. You used to teach about design thinking. We talk about rapid prototyping and iteration.
Yep.
From your experience as a founder, as a professor, where should iteration stop and conviction begin?
I think iteration and conviction are interlinked. You can't really separate them.
Okay.
You iterate because you're convinced that part of your idea has a lot of potential. But you don't fall in love with the idea and say, this is the only thing I'll pursue. But as you get feedback and you get an MVP, as we talked about, and that starts getting traction, that's when you go and start raising resources. Today, there are lots of people who are looking for young people who are passionate about doing something and are willing to fund them, and fund them at least in the initial stages. We call it angel funding, as you probably know.
Right.
So there are a lot of angels roaming around. In fact, we have talked about them in Lean Spark. I have another book coming out, which is called Simple Thinking, which again shows you that bringing things down to very simple, basic heuristics can solve a lot of problems, including in entrepreneurship.
All right. A question for the students. What should students optimize for in their early 20s? Skill depth, network, or name, or money, or experimentation? What is that one particular thing in early 20s that students should definitely focus upon?
The first two that you said, skills and networking. The skills you can pick up studying in a good place like Plaksha or Ashoka, or networking, do an MBA, the IIMs for example, and now you have many options including one-year MBAs. So the MBA gives you the networking because your classmates are going to become VCs and corporate managers and CEOs. So networking, I think, is extremely important, and you know, it's not something that you have to learn. You do it automatically. It comes as part of because you're in a class of people, all of whom are out to help you and gain your help. There's a book called Give and Take. You've heard of it. Read books like that, and it will tell you how networking is something that, and you first give, and then you take.
If I may ask, and it might be a bit too niche, but many entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, go about thinking that I'll be a lone wolf and I will build this all on my own, and that is how I'll proceed. how would you explain to them the importance of networking?
Okay, firstly, that lone entrepreneur story has been debunked. Today, it's much more advisable to have a partner who may have complementary skills and open up newer opportunities. The second thing is that you need to set up a board. So, if once you know that this is the path you're on, get some experienced entrepreneurs, and the easiest ones to get are alums of your university. They are just out to help you, and they would love to take an idea forward from one of their own students. Fortunately, at IIM Ahmedabad, we have a 50-year history, and you just have to reach out to the alum group, and we have so many networking opportunities. And believe me, I know the senior alums and I know the students, and there's such hunger on the alum side to say, get us good youngsters, good opportunities, people who are really passionate, and we are here to fund them.
I see. Professor Sood, thank you for sharing your insights with us. We are hitting a time constraint. But before we end, I would like to ask you, you did mention quite a lot of books, but what would be your read list for the students? What are some book recommendations that you would like to give them?
So there are 3 books I recommend in my design thinking class.
Okay.
I recommend Nudge by Richard Thaler. I recommend Peter Thiel's and Eric Ries's books on lean startup. I mean, there are multiple books and you can choose one of them. And of course, I recommend Leapfrog.
I see. Well, thank you for being here with us today and for sharing your insights. It was absolutely lovely chatting with you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.